A rock above Earth could rewrite wealth itself. Whoever reaches it first changes the rules forever. It starts with a spark of massive ambition and engineering. One asteroid could hold more resources than humanity could mine for centuries. By 2050, speculation becomes a balance sheet. It begins quietly, far from the public eye. It begins quietly, then one mission changes markets forever. Small victories in a quiet room mark the start of a new era. Entire fortunes may be decided behind closed doors. Not by nations, by whoever moves first. Old laws never planned for this moment. The loopholes may create the next empire. However, working there is the real challenge. In this race, most of the high-stakes bets will fail. One win could outweigh every loss in history. Now it's no longer exploration. It's a race, and second place may mean nothing. Information became more valuable than metal. The real battle started long before launch. The real battle started long before launch. When billions disappear without answers, every accident starts looking intentional. Just one rumor was enough to move billions. Nobody confirmed it, the market didn't care. For these nations, it was a matter of economic survival. One disaster opened the door for someone else. The market reallocates wealth instantly and without remorse. Behind every trillion-dollar dream, someone else pays the price. Who owns resources that belong to no one? The question keeps getting louder. This isn't one mission anymore. It's the largest race humanity has ever started. Behind it waits Earth's economy. Ahead of it waits unlimited possibility, a lone traveler in the vast darkness of space. The bet has already been placed on the future of humanity. Now the world waits to see who collects. Somewhere above us, a rock is worth more than every economy on Earth combined. It has no owner, no flag, no law that fully applies to it. Whoever reaches it first doesn't just get rich, they rewrite what rich even means. Between Mars and Jupiter sits a belt of rubble. Scientists estimate one single asteroid alone holds more nickel and iron than humanity could mine in 1,000 lifetimes. For a century, it was science fiction. By 2050, insiders believe it becomes balance sheets. It starts quietly, a startup, a patent, a government contract. Then a single successful retrieval mission changes everything. Markets don't know how to price something that doesn't run out. And the first person to solve that problem holds the keys to a new economic era. 12 people in a room can decide who profits from the entire solar system. No vote, no referendum. Just capital, timing, and the will to go first. This is the story of how that race actually plays out. When the first commercial sample capsule lands, it won't make headlines. It will make spreadsheets. The logistics of the future are being calculated now because somewhere a number is about to become real. And once it's real, the world changes whether it's ready or not. Every gold rush in history followed the same pattern. Find the resource, control the access, set the price. Space is simply the next deposit. Except this deposit is larger than every mine on Earth combined. The technology being tested today in oceans and labs is the rehearsal. Robotic extraction, remote drilling, autonomous navigation. None of it was built for space first. All of it is being repurposed for it now. Launch costs have fallen more than 90% since the early 2000s. What once required a national agency now requires a credit line. That shift turned space mining from a fantasy into a financial model. And financial models attract capital fast. Sovereign wealth funds have already begun quietly funding orbital mining ventures. Not because they're certain it will work, because if it does, being early is the only seat that matters. Nobody wants to be the fund that passed on the asteroid belt. Every test like this is a quiet bet on $1 trillion outcome. Most will fail. The risk of the unknown is the price of entry. But the ones that succeed don't just unlock a market. They unlock a new tier of wealth that's never existed before. Behind the scenes, thousands of objects are already being mapped and ranked. Each one scored by accessibility, composition, and orbital cost. It's not exploration anymore. It's the new gold rush. It's due diligence on a celestial scale. On Earth, controlling supply chains built empires, steel, oil, rare earth metals. Space mining offers the same prize, but without the geography. No borders to cross, no tariffs, no competing nations sitting on the deposit. The territory has no edges, and the supply is infinite. There's an old treaty that says no nation can own outer space. It says nothing about individuals or private companies. That loophole, written before satellites had computers, is the entire foundation of the coming gold rush. Nobody closed the door. They just forgot to lock it. The people positioning for this moment aren't household names. They're quiet allocators of capital who've made fortunes betting early before. They don't need headlines. They need a 10-year head start. The silent players are moving the largest pieces on the board. And then one signal changes everything. A successful sample return, a verified composition, a confirmed value. From that moment, this is no longer theory. It's the opening bell of the most lucrative market humanity has ever created. The data becomes a destiny for the entire global market. The moment word leaks, markets move first. Mining stocks, metal futures, even insurance premiums on Earth's own mines. Nobody needs to understand orbital mechanics. They just need to understand what scarcity disappearing does to price. The numbers rewrite the reality of global wealth in seconds. For every winner in this story, there's a quiet loser. Terrestrial mining towns that built entire economies on scarcity. If space supply floods the market, those economies don't slow down, they collapse. The legacy of the ground is overshadowed by the wealth in the sky. This isn't an abstract market correction, it's mortgages, pensions, entire towns built around a single export. The breakthrough creates a quadrillionaire. It could erase a regional economy overnight. History calls this disruption. The people living through it call it something else entirely. Every week, new candidates are found, some rich in platinum, others holding rare isotopes barely available on Earth. Each discovery isn't just science. It's a new line item on someone's future balance sheet. A new world of wealth is being mapped out in the stars. Behind closed doors, partnerships are forming that no public filing fully explains. Mining companies, launch providers, insurance underwriters, all quietly aligning around the same bet, that somewhere out there, the first trillion-dollar rock is already claimed. The signatures are set, the race has its silent owners. Every launch like this carries more than fuel and cargo. It carries a thesis, that whoever lands first owns first. And whoever owns first rewrites the entire concept of wealth. The future is being fueled on the pads of today. Not every player in this race is a billionaire. Some are small teams betting everything on being first to a minor target. In gold rushes, fortunes were made by individuals as often as by empires. This one may be no different. The small teams are the wild cards. Even the infrastructure for this race is improvised. Old oil platforms repurposed. Decommissioned military radar repointed at the sky. The first space economy is being built from the bones of the last one. The transition is already happening in the silence of the sea. Conferences like this used to be niche. Now they fill arenas. Because the question is no longer if this happens, it's who gets there first. And how much of the planet's future wealth they'll control? The world is watching the scoreboard of the solar system. What's being built right now isn't one mission, it's a fleet. Redundancy, scale, and speed, the same playbook that built the railroads. Except this time, the territory has no edges. The scale of the operation is already beyond any previous endeavor. Each successful stage is a domino. Investors watching from boardrooms see the same footage. But they read it differently. They see the moment their thesis stopped being theoretical. Success in space is the ultimate proof of concept for the bottom line. The telemetry confirms the start of a new industrial era. Within minutes of confirmation, billions move. Not because anyone fully understands the mission, because everyone understands what a confirmed trillion-dollar resource does to a balance sheet. Fear of missing out is the oldest force in finance. And it doesn't care if the asset is on Earth or in orbit. The public sees the spectacle, models in museums, headlines. What they don't see is the quiet legal and financial scaffolding. That scaffolding is where the real fortune gets decided. The future is being built while the world is looking at the show. Ownership claims on asteroids are already being recorded digitally. Coordinates, composition estimates, and priority filings all logged before a mission departs. It's not science fiction anymore, it's paperwork. The data centers are the new land registries of the void. Timing in this race isn't optional. Certain approach windows only open once every few years. Miss it, and a competitor claims the prize instead. This is why so much capital moves in such complete silence. Until the moment the engines roar and the silence breaks. Make no mistake, this is a race with real competitors. Multiple companies are targeting the same bodies. Whoever arrives first doesn't just win bragging rights, they may legally lock out everyone who arrives second. The calendar is the ticking clock of a new economic era. Every mission carries the risk of catastrophic failure. A single miscalculation can cost years. But the companies still pushing forward have already done the math. The reward, if it works, dwarfs every previous risk in financial history. The edge of disaster is where the new wealth is forged. By the time the public hears about a major breakthrough, the real deal was finalized months earlier. In rooms exactly like this one, the headlines are just the confirmation. The decisions were always made in private first. The deal is already done. The silence is the signature of the highest stakes. Global wealth is moving into the void. This is where part one ends and the real race begins, not a nation's flag. Just a question mark about to be answered. Who gets there first? And what happens to the rest of us when they do? The engines are primed, the world is waiting for the roar. Behind it, an entire planet's economy waits to see what comes back. Ahead of it, a resource larger than every fortune ever made combined. What happens next will not just create new wealth. It will force humanity to ask what wealth even means once scarcity disappears. To understand this wealth, you have to understand scarcity. Every fortune in history was built on something running out: diamonds, oil, land. Space mining doesn't bend that rule. Space mining breaks that rule entirely. On Earth, platinum group metals are rare because geology made them rare. Buried deep, spread thin, expensive to extract. Certain metallic asteroids contain concentrations thousands of times richer than any terrestrial deposit. It's not a new mine, it's a different category of mine entirely. NASA's own mission to the metallic asteroid Psyche was sent to study exactly this kind of body. Early estimates of its nickel and iron content reach numbers that don't fit comfortably into normal economic language. Quintillions, not billions. Numbers so large they stop sounding like money and start sounding like geology. But value on paper means nothing without extraction. That's the real bottleneck and the real opportunity. Whoever builds the cheapest, most reliable way to bring material back wins the entire game. Not the richest asteroid, the most efficient miner. Robotic mining technology has been quietly maturing for over a decade, originally for deep sea and remote terrestrial extraction, now repurposed and adapted for zero gravity, vacuum, and extreme temperature swings. The hardest part isn't reaching the asteroid anymore, it's working once you're there. Temperatures in deep space swing hundreds of degrees in minutes. Every component has to survive extremes no factory floor can fully replicate. This is why so much capital goes into testing, not flying. Failure in space isn't a delay, it's a write-off in the billions. Every investor backing this knows the odds. Most early missions either fail outright or return inconclusive data. But venture capital doesn't need every bet to win. It needs one bet to win bigger than every other bet combined. This is the same logic that funded the early internet. Most startups failed. A handful became worth more than entire countries. Space mining investors are running the identical playbook. Except this time, the upside isn't measured in market share, it's measured in solar system share. Behind every mission is a legal structure designed to protect first mover advantage. Shell companies, cross-border holding entities, licensing arrangements that span jurisdictions. The goal isn't secrecy for its own sake. It's making sure that when the prize is found, the ownership trail is airtight. Some of these legal structures route through jurisdictions built specifically for this kind of registration. Favorable tax treatment, minimal regulatory friction, maximum flexibility. It's the same playbook offshore finance has used for decades. Just pointed at a target that's no longer on this planet. Some governments have already passed laws granting companies ownership over what they extract. Not the asteroid itself, just whatever comes off of it. It sounds like a technicality. It's actually the entire legal foundation the new wealth will be built on. Lobbying around this issue has quietly intensified for years. Not in public debates, but in subcommittee hearings most people never hear about. Whoever writes the rules first shapes who's allowed to win. And the rules are being written right now. A generation is growing up being told this industry will define their careers. Universities are building entire degree programs around orbital resource engineering. It's not a hobby anymore, it's a career track. And every graduate entering it is betting their future on the same thesis driving the billionaires. University labs are now feeder programs for the companies leading this race. Internships that once led to aerospace giants now lead to mining startups instead. The talent pipeline has already shifted, which means the industry isn't speculative anymore, it's institutional. Job titles that didn't exist a decade ago now fill entire recruiting fairs. Orbital mining systems engineer, regolith processing specialist, off-world logistics planner. These aren't speculative job postings. Companies are hiring for them today, with real salaries and real equity. Every piece of hardware in this industry passes through dozens of suppliers. Most of those suppliers have no idea their parts are headed toward an asteroid. They just know orders have tripled in 5 years. The supply chain is already feeling a boom most of the public hasn't even noticed yet. Small manufacturers across entire regions are quietly being absorbed into this supply chain. A bracket maker, a precision welder, a sensor calibration shop. None of them are space companies. But all of them are now part of the infrastructure that makes the gold rush possible. Even insurance has had to evolve. How do you underwrite a mission with no historical precedent and no recovery plan if it fails? Specialized space insurance underwriters now exist purely to price that uncertainty. And the premiums they charge are themselves a quiet bet on how this all turns out. Commodity markets are already pricing in the possibility of this future. Long-dated futures contracts on certain metals have started reflecting space mining speculation. Traders are betting on a supply shock that hasn't happened yet. Markets don't wait for certainty, they price probability. For terrestrial mining regions, the math is brutal. If even a fraction of projected off-world supply reaches the market, prices for certain metals could fall by half or more. That's not a hypothetical headline. That's a regional economy losing its only employer. In meetings like this, the conversation isn't about asteroids. It's about whether the mine stays open another 5 years. The people in this room may never see a rocket launch, but they'll feel its consequences before most billionaires even notice. Some companies are hedging their bets across both frontiers. Deep sea mining and asteroid mining share more technology than people realize. Robotics built for crushing pressure translate well to crushing vacuum. Whoever masters one frontier has a head start on the other. This is what diversification looks like at the absolute top of the wealth ladder. They aren't just betting on stocks and bonds anymore. Entire frontiers hedged against each other. It's a level of strategic thinking most of the public never sees in action. The people positioning to benefit most from this shift are rarely public about it. They don't need to be. Visibility invites scrutiny, regulation, and competition. Quiet accumulation is the entire strategy. Private banks built entire divisions just to manage wealth like this, structuring it, shielding it, growing it quietly across generations. The same institutions that handled oil fortunes a century ago are already preparing for this one. They've done this before, they just changed the resource. Every successful test on Earth is a rehearsal for a mission that may happen only once. There's no second chance once a probe reaches its target. That singular pressure is why testing budgets dwarf almost every other expense. Perfection isn't a preference here, it's the entire business model. Every component that flies has been tested far beyond what any consumer product would require. Because the cost of failure isn't a product recall, it's the loss of a multi-decade head start in a race that may never repeat itself. This is what it actually costs to compete for a $quadrillion prize. New infrastructure is being built specifically for this industry, not retrofitted from old space programs. Entire launch complexes designed from scratch around mining payload requirements. This isn't preparation for a possibility anymore. It's construction for an outcome they consider close to inevitable. Every public announcement is carefully timed. Enough to maintain investor confidence, not enough to reveal strategic positioning. The full picture of who's actually winning this race rarely makes it into a press release. That picture exists in boardrooms, not headlines. Some of the most important tracking work happens in places few people will ever visit. Remote, quiet, deliberately out of the public eye. It's unglamorous work that decides who gets the data first. And in this race, data arriving first is worth more than the asteroid itself. Even the estimates themselves are contested. Different models produce wildly different valuations for the same object. Some experts argue the entire quadrillion-dollar framing is wildly overstated, more marketing than mineralogy. The truth is, nobody will know for certain until something actually comes back. Plenty of credible economists remain openly skeptical. Extraction costs, transport costs, and refining costs could erase most of the theoretical value. Bringing material back to Earth might not even make economic sense compared to using it in orbit. This story has a counter-narrative, and it deserves to be heard just as loudly. It's possible this entire frontier ends up being overhyped. It's happened before with other resource booms that fizzled before they fully arrived. But even skeptics agree on one thing. If even one mission succeeds at scale, the financial shockwave will be unlike anything markets have priced before. Whether this becomes humanity's greatest economic leap or its most expensive disappointment, the infrastructure keeps growing. Billions committed, careers built, entire supply chains realigned. The bet has already been placed. What happens next decides who collects. This is no longer one rocket chasing one rock. It's a global race with dozens of competitors converging on the same prize. And as part 2 ends, the real tension begins. Because in any race this large, not everyone makes it to the finish line intact. When 2 missions target the same asteroid in the same window, there's no referee. Whoever's hardware survives gets there first. And first isn't just an achievement. In this race, first might be the only outcome that legally counts. Competing companies don't just race in public. They probe each other's systems looking for an edge. Trajectory data, composition estimates, launch schedules. Information has become as valuable as the asteroid itself. Corporate espionage in this industry isn't rumor, it's an acknowledged cost of doing business. They probe each other's systems looking for an edge. Trajectory data, composition estimates, launch schedules. Information has become as valuable as the asteroid itself. Corporate espionage in this industry isn't rumor. It's an acknowledged cost of doing business at this scale. Composite cases across the sector describe leaked trajectory files, poached engineers, and contested patents. Nobody confirms it publicly, everybody budgets for it privately. Lawsuits between rival mining ventures have already begun quietly working through the courts. Allegations of stolen trajectory algorithms, disputed patent claims on extraction methods. None of these cases will make front-page news, but their outcomes could determine which company controls the technology that makes this whole race possible. Some failures in this industry are genuine accidents. Equipment fails, software glitches, weather interferes. Others are harder to explain. And in an industry this competitive, every unexplained failure invites suspicion. Equipment fails, software glitches, weather interferes. Others are harder to explain. And in an industry this competitive, every unexplained failure invites suspicion. When a multi-billion-dollar mission fails without a clear cause, the silence afterwards speaks volumes. Was it bad luck, or was it sabotage dressed up as bad luck? In most cases, nobody outside the room ever finds out. That uncertainty is its own kind of leverage. The first real market shock comes not from a discovery, but from a rumor, a leaked memo, an unconfirmed test result. Within hours, mining stocks tied to terrestrial platinum and nickel lose a quarter of their value. Nobody verified anything. The market reacted anyway. Within hours, mining stocks lose a quarter of their value. Nobody verified anything. The market reacted anyway. The first real market shock comes from a rumor. For terrestrial mining workers, that rumor isn't abstract. It's the difference between a stable paycheck and a layoff notice. Markets move on speculation in seconds. Communities absorb the consequences for years. Markets move on speculation in seconds. Communities absorb the consequences for years for terrestrial mining workers. That rumor isn't abstract. It's the difference between a stable paycheck and a layoff notice. Governments dependent on mineral exports are already wargaming this exact scenario. What happens to a national economy if half its primary export suddenly loses most of its value? These aren't hypothetical planning exercises anymore. They're active contingency files sitting in real ministries. What happens to a national economy if half its primary export suddenly loses most of its value? These aren't hypothetical planning exercises. International summits on space resource governance have grown larger and tenser each year. Resource-rich nations want protections for their terrestrial economies. Spacefaring nations want minimal restrictions. Nobody in that room fully agrees, and the asteroids aren't waiting for consensus. International summits on space resource governance. Resource-rich nations want protections. Spacefaring nations want minimal restrictions. Nobody in that room fully agrees. As stakes rise, so does military interest. Not direct conflict, but quiet positioning. Protecting launch corridors. Securing tracking infrastructure, nobody wants to admit it, but national security and asteroid mining have become connected. Not direct conflict, but quiet positioning. Securing tracking infrastructure, nobody wants to admit it. National security and asteroid mining have quietly become connected. As stakes rise, so does military interest. Defense planners increasingly view control of space resource access as a strategic asset. The same way oil reserves shaped 20th century military strategy, this isn't about asteroids needing protection. It's about which nation's companies get to extract them first and who benefits when they do. Defense planners increasingly. The same way oil reserves shaped strategy, which nation's companies get to extract them first. Who benefits? Public unease is growing too. Why should a handful of companies control resources belonging to no one? Protests outside major mining company headquarters have become more frequent. The question of fairness hasn't gone away. Public unease is growing too. Protests outside major mining company headquarters. The question of fairness. The question of fairness hasn't gone away just because the resource left the planet. Why should a handful of companies control? These debates rarely make national headlines, but they're happening in town halls across mining-dependent regions. Workers want assurance their livelihoods won't be erased without warning. Companies offer reassurances. Whether those promises hold is the real test still to come. Debates are happening in town halls. Workers want assurance. Companies offer reassurances about transition timelines and retraining programs. Whether those promises hold is the real test. Then comes the failure nobody can spin. A major test mission ends in catastrophic loss, billions gone in seconds. A competitor's window suddenly wide open. In this race, somebody else's disaster is somebody else's opportunity. Billions gone in seconds. A competitor's window suddenly wide open. Somebody else's disaster, opportunity. Then comes the failure nobody can spin. Catastrophic loss. The race changes in an instant. Within the hour, the company's stock collapses by double digits. Within the day, a rival stock spikes. The market doesn't grieve, it reallocates. Executives reviewing wreckage footage in stunned silence. Within the hour, stock collapses. Within the day, a rival's stock spikes. The market doesn't grieve, it reallocates. The market doesn't grieve, it reallocates. Within the hour, the company's stock collapses by double digits. Behind every spectacular failure are ordinary layoffs. Engineers who bet their careers on this exact mission. The headlines move on within days, the unemployment lines don't. Ordinary layoffs, engineers, technicians. Behind every spectacular failure are ordinary layoffs. The headlines move on, the unemployment lines don't. Engineers, technicians, and support staff who bet their careers on this mission. The unemployment lines don't move. For every billionaire chasing this prize, there are thousands of skilled workers absorbing the volatility underneath them. Boom and bust cycles in this industry move faster than almost any other sector. A single failed mission can erase stability. This is the human cost rarely shown next to the rocket footage. Thousands of skilled workers absorbing volatility. Boom and bust cycles move faster than any other sector. A single failed mission can erase career stability overnight. While one company reels from disaster, another accelerates its own timeline. Confidence among investors shifts overnight. Stability itself becomes the most valuable asset of all. Some companies survive because they're simply still standing. While one company reels, another accelerates. Confidence shifts toward whoever looks stable, most valuable asset. Some companies survive not because they're the best, but because they're simply still standing. Stability is the prize. Shareholder meetings after a major failure are rarely calm. Investors who backed a multi-billion-dollar bet want answers. The executives on stage know one thing for certain: confidence once lost is brutally expensive to rebuild. Investors who backed a multi-billion-dollar bet want answers, not reassurances. Confidence is expensive to rebuild. Shareholder meetings after a failure are rarely calm. Executives know confidence is brutally expensive to rebuild. As competition intensifies, some companies move research into secure, isolated facilities, far from prying eyes. Paranoia, once reserved for defense contractors, has become standard practice here. Even competitors look like threats. Companies move research into secure, isolated facilities, far from headquarters, far from prying eyes. Paranoia. When the prize is this large, even legitimate competitors start to look like threats. Standard practice now. Negotiations between rival companies happen far from any cameras. Sometimes it's a merger discussion. Consolidation, not competition, may end up deciding who actually wins this race. Deals happen more often than admitted. Sometimes it's a quiet attempt to buy out a smaller competitor. Consolidation may end up deciding who wins. Negotiations happen far from cameras. Composite reporting suggests deals happen more often than anyone admits. When two competitors merge instead of racing to failure, the market reads it as relief. Fewer redundant missions. For smaller players still in the race, it's a warning. The field is consolidating. Fewer seats left at the table. Combined resources. A clearer leader emerging. When two competitors merge instead of racing each other. Warning. The field is consolidating and there will be fewer seats left at the table. Relief for the market, warning for the rest. Smaller startups without billionaire backing face brutal math. Burn rate against fundraising timeline, no guarantees. Many will run out of money before they ever reach an asteroid. Failure won't make headlines, just disappear. Burn rate against fundraising timeline. Many will run out of money. Failure won't make headlines. Brutal math. Smaller startups without billionaire backing, they will quietly disappear from the industry roster. Math is brutal. Every gold rush in history leaves behind more failures than successes. This one will be no different. Dozens will close. The wreckage of ambition rarely makes the documentary highlight reel. Dozens more will quietly close their doors. Every gold rush leaves behind more failures. This one no different. Wreckage of ambition rarely shown. Failures. For every company that reaches the asteroid belt, dozens more will quietly close their doors first. No different. Regulatory scrutiny intensifies with every failure. Safety violations once overlooked in a smaller industry now draw real consequences. Some companies welcome the oversight. Others see it as a competitor's lobbying effort, public safety concern. Regulatory scrutiny intensifies. Safety violations draw consequences. Some welcome oversight, others see lobbying. Competitors' lobbying effort dressed up as public safety concern. Scrutiny intensifies. Real consequences now. Sometimes the obstacle isn't a rival or a regulator, it's simply nature. A storm can delay a mission by weeks. Missing a critical orbital window. A delay can cost as much as outright failure. The universe doesn't care about capital. Obstacle isn't a rival, it's nature. Storm can delay mission by weeks. Universe doesn't care how much capital is riding. A delay caused by weather can cost as much as outright failure. Missing critical windows. Nature is the obstacle. Missing a window doesn't mean stopping. It means recalculating, refueling, and hoping a competitor doesn't close the gap. Every delay is measured in how much ground a rival gains. Patience is a luxury few can afford. Recalculating, refueling. Missing a window means recalculating, hoping a competitor doesn't close the gap. Delay is measured in ground lost. In this race, patience is a luxury few can actually afford. Every delay measured in ground a rival gains, recalculating. The companies that survive these setbacks come back changed, more cautious, more resilient, more dangerous to competitors. Disaster often becomes the foundation for an eventual breakthrough. Industry rewards whoever can absorb the most pain. Surviving companies come back changed, resilient, dangerous. Disaster becomes foundation for breakthrough, absorbing pain. Industry rewards whoever can absorb the most pain and keep moving. Surviving setbacks makes you more dangerous. Foundation. Behind every recovery is a team that simply refused to stop. Not out of optimism, but out of necessity. Too much capital. Whoever blinks first loses everything they've already spent. Resolve visible despite fatigue, refused to stop, necessity. Behind every recovery is a team that refused to stop. Necessity, not optimism. Too much capital riding on this. Resolve. Whoever blinks first loses everything already spent. Can't walk away, too many careers at stake, refuse to stop. This launch carries more than hardware. It carries the weight of every setback that came before it. If it succeeds, if it fails again, the entire venture may not survive. Weight of every setback. Success makes chaos a footnote. Launch carries the weight of every setback. Success makes chaos a footnote. Failure means the venture won't survive. Footnote. If it fails again, the entire venture may not survive long enough to try a third time. Footnote or finale. Ready. For a moment, everything goes right. No alarms, no anomalies, just a clean, steady climb. Small victory in a larger war. Small victories are enough to shift the entire balance of power. Clean, steady climb, everything goes right. Shifting power. For a moment, everything goes right. No alarms, just a steady climb. Shift in the balance of power. Small victory. War. Small victories are enough to shift the balance of power. Clean, steady climb. Everything goes right, disappearing into clouds. There's no champagne shower here, no fireworks, just quiet exhaustion and the relief of having survived another stage. The real celebration is still months or years away. Surviving is the only victory that matters. Quiet exhaustion, relief. No champagne, no fireworks, just quiet exhaustion. Surviving another stage. Real celebration is months away. Victory. For now, surviving is the only victory that matters. No fireworks, just relief. Stage complete. Victory in survival. Months later, against the odds, something finally comes home. Not the full prize yet, just proof that the method works. It's an incoming data point in an enormously expensive experiment. Changes how seriously the world takes this race. Proof. Something finally comes home. Not the full prize, but proof. Single data point, expensive experiment. World takes notice. The data point that changes how seriously the rest of the world takes this race. Proof the method works. Coming home. As part 3 ends, the chaos hasn't disappeared. It's simply been absorbed into the next phase of the race. Trigger. This single successful return is about to trigger something far bigger. Understanding exactly what's at stake, chaos absorbed. Part 3 ends. Chaos hasn't disappeared. Next phase. Single successful return. Trigger something far bigger. Stakes. The moment the rest of the world finally understands exactly what's at stake. Trigger something far bigger. Dawn breaks. The confirmation comes faster than anyone expected. A verified, large-scale extraction success, with composition values matching the highest pre-mission estimates. Within hours, it's the only story in the world. This is the moment theory becomes history. The company doesn't call it a victory lap, they call it proof of concept at scale. But everyone in that room understands what it actually means. The first verified trillion-dollar extraction in human history has just been confirmed. Markets across the globe react within minutes, not days. Mining stocks tied to terrestrial scarcity plunge. Space industry stocks soar past anything seen since the earliest tech booms. For the first time, an off-world event moves trillions of dollars on Earth in a single afternoon. In towns built on the very minerals this discovery threatens to devalue, the mood is different. This is not a celebration. It's the moment an abstract fear becomes an undeniable reality. It's the moment an abstract fear becomes an undeniable reality. The math they'd been avoiding for years just landed on their television screen. Within weeks, regional mining operations begin announcing structural changes. Some call it restructuring. Workers call it the beginning of the end. Government transition programs are promised. Whether they arrive fast enough is a question nobody in that room can yet answer. Inside the company that pulled this off, the mood is oddly subdued. There is no time to celebrate. Now comes the harder part. Turning a verified resource into liquid, usable wealth. Extraction was the dream. Monetization is the actual business. Bringing material back to Earth turns out to be only part of the plan. Much of it is destined to stay in orbit, used to build the very infrastructure needed for the next mission. It's a closed loop few people anticipated. The wealth isn't just extracted, it's reinvested into expanding the frontier itself. How do you even hold wealth at this scale? Traditional banking systems were not built for numbers like this. New structures, spanning trusts, holding companies, and multinational entities are being built specifically to contain it. The infrastructure for managing this fortune is being invented in real time. Managing this is happening alongside the creation of the fortune itself. The person or small group behind this fortune rarely appears in public. There is no ribbon-cutting ceremony, no magazine cover. Wealth at this scale does not need visibility. It needs quiet, careful management, far from cameras and far from scrutiny. The era of the invisible elite has truly arrived. Almost immediately, lawmakers begin proposing new taxation frameworks. Some call for a windfall tax. Others argue it would simply push the entire industry offshore. This debate echoes the same arguments fought over oil wealth a century earlier. The resource changed. The fight over who deserves a share of it hasn't. Public sentiment splits sharply. Some see this as humanity's greatest economic leap forward. Others see it as the largest unearned windfall in history, captured by a tiny handful of people. Both arguments have real merit, and neither side is fully wrong. Economists studying this moment point to a familiar pattern. Every major resource windfall in history concentrated wealth before it ever redistributed it. Oil, diamonds, rare earth metals. There's no historical precedent for this kind of discovery distributing its benefits evenly, at least not quickly. The patterns of the past are repeating in the vacuum of space. In response to criticism, some of the new wealth does get redirected. Philanthropic pledges, infrastructure investment, workforce retraining funds. Whether this is genuine generosity or careful public relations is a debate that will outlive this entire story. Often in history, it's been both at once. On the ground, some of this money does visibly help. New programs, new opportunities, real investment in communities that might otherwise have been left behind. It doesn't erase the broader inequality this discovery created, but it complicates the simple story of villains and victims that headlines prefer. Confirmation of this discovery doesn't end the race, it accelerates it. Nations that were cautious before now move aggressively to fund their own ventures. Nobody wants to watch the next trillion-dollar discovery happen without them. The race for the stars is no longer a dream, it is a geopolitical necessity. Government space agencies that once moved at a cautious, careful pace suddenly find themselves with expedited budgets. Political pressure to compete outweighs the usual caution around spending. This isn't just a private sector race anymore. It's becoming a matter of national economic strategy. What started as a handful of private ventures has become a genuine global undertaking. Dozens of missions from multiple countries, all converging on the same general region of space. The asteroid belt, once an empty rock field, is becoming the most contested territory humanity has ever pursued. And it has no government, no police, and no agreed-upon rules. Attempts to create binding international rules keep stalling. Too many competing interests. Too much money already committed under the old ambiguous framework. Some officials privately admit the laws may never fully catch up to the wealth already being created. In the absence of clear rules, whoever has the most capital effectively writes their own. Not every story from this era ends in triumph. Some of the engineers and researchers who built the foundations of this industry never lived to see this outcome. Composite tributes across the field honor the early failures that made later successes possible. Every breakthrough like this stands on the shoulders of attempts that didn't survive. The silent contributors of the space age will never be forgotten. For families connected to this industry's early casualties, this moment carries complicated weight. Pride in what their loved ones contributed to. Grief that they aren't here to see how far it went. History rarely credits the people who built the groundwork instead of the headline. The ghosts of the mission live on in the machines of the present. Financial analysts now openly discuss what was unthinkable a decade ago. Not just trillionaires, but potentially the first quadrillionaire in human history. A single individual or tightly held entity controlling wealth larger than most national economies combined. Whether that actually happens by 2050 remains genuinely uncertain. But the door, for the first time, is undeniably open. Future history books may mark this moment the way they mark the discovery of oil or the rise of the railroads. A turning point where wealth itself was redefined, but that blank space on the timeline matters. Because as of right now, this story hasn't actually finished being written. The future is a blank page waiting for the next extraction. What was once a single, terrifying gamble has, in this telling, become something closer to industrial routine. Not because the risk disappeared, but because enough capital, talent, and infrastructure eventually made it repeatable. That transition from gamble to industry is when fortunes truly compound. The routine of the machine is the heartbeat of the new economy. Every serious analysis of this moment circles back to the same unresolved question. What happens to the rest of the global economy when one resource pool dwarfs every other form of wealth combined? Optimists believe the abundance eventually lowers costs and benefits everyone. Skeptics fear it simply entrenches a new, untouchable aristocracy. Both outcomes remain genuinely possible. The path forward is still shrouded in shadow. The question of everyone else remains the most critical of our time. With this wealth confirmed, construction projects once considered fantasy now have real funding behind them. Permanent orbital facilities. Expanded refining capacity, the first true infrastructure of a multiplanetary economy. It's no longer a question of can it be built. It's a question of who gets to own it once it is. For the people who started this journey years earlier, in cramped offices with uncertain funding, this moment is the culmination of everything they bet on. The applause in this room is real. But so is the awareness that this wealth now comes with a scrutiny they've never faced before. Power on this scale doesn't go unwatched for long. The spotlight of history is now focused on the board. Regulatory scrutiny intensifies almost immediately. Tax authorities, antitrust regulators, and international bodies all want a closer look at how this wealth is structured. Whether any of it results in real change remains to be seen. Historically, scrutiny of fortunes this size has produced more headlines than actual reform. The ink of the law is dry, but its power is still untested. On the ground, ordinary people are adapting in their own way. New training programs, new certifications, new career paths built around an industry that barely existed a generation earlier. Whether or not anyone becomes a quadrillionaire, this shift is already creating real jobs and real opportunity. That part of the story is happening regardless of how the largest fortunes get distributed. A new generation is entering this field with none of the original skepticism that defined its early years. To them, this isn't a wild bet anymore. It's simply the next frontier of a career, the same way oil or software once was. That shift in mindset may end up mattering more than any single discovery. The ambition of youth is the fuel of the future economy. For most people watching this unfold, it isn't about becoming a trillionaire themselves. It's about understanding what kind of world their children are about to inherit. A world where the line between Earth's economy and space's economy has permanently blurred. That shift alone is historic, regardless of who ends up holding the largest fortune. The extraordinary is becoming the everyday for the next generation. What began as a single, improbable bet has, in this scenario, become an entire economic sector. Suppliers, refiners, logistics firms, and insurers. All now permanently built around this new resource class. Even if no single person becomes the world's first quadrillionaire, this industry alone has already permanently changed how wealth gets created on Earth. The sun never sets on the new orbital industrial machine. Looking back over the years it took to reach this point, the pattern is familiar. Slow, expensive, uncertain progress, followed by a single moment that changes everything. It happened with oil. It happened with the internet. It appears cautiously to be happening again, this time written across the entire solar system. The seeds of the quadrillion-dollar age were sown in the soil of the last century. From up here, the entire argument over wealth and fairness looks impossibly small. Just one fragile planet, its arguments about money playing out beneath an indifferent sky. And yet those arguments will decide who actually benefits from everything beyond it. The frontier doesn't care about fairness, only the people choosing how to use it can. The silence of the stars is the final arbitrator of human ambition. Whatever the final number turns out to be, trillionaire, multiple trillionaires, or eventually a single quadrillionaire, the deeper truth remains the same. Humanity just proved it could extract meaningful wealth from beyond its own planet. That capability doesn't disappear once the headlines fade. It becomes the foundation everything after this is built on. The era of extraction is now a permanent chapter of the human story. Maybe the first quadrillionaire really is out there, already in motion, already certain of the outcome. Or maybe this entire frontier stalls out before it ever gets that far. Either way, the race has already changed how the world thinks about wealth, risk, and what's actually out of reach. The only question left is who's still watching when the answer finally arrives. The stars are the only witnesses to the true cost of the quadrillionaire age.